everybody, my name is Connor. I'm an English teacher and a state exam corrector. In this video we'll be looking at a sample answer that was written in response to a Robert Frost question that appeared in paper 2 back in 2011. It would be a great idea if you could read the sample answer first before watching this video. By reading the sample answer first, you'll get a flavour of the student's writing and you'll also become that bit more familiar with some of the main points that will come up in the Frost essay in this video. Having watched the video then, it would be a good idea for you to take a look at the annotated PDF version of the sample answer. This will just give you some more information and tips on the essay which won't have been covered in the video. So before we get into the sample answer itself, let's take a quick look at the question. The question reads, Frost's simple style is deceptive and a thoughtful reader will see layers of meaning in his poetry. Do you agree with this assessment of his poetry? Write a response supporting your points with the aid of suitable reference to the poems on your course. Okay, so the first thing you should notice here in this question is the fact that the question has two tasks. The first task is to discuss how Frost's simple style is deceptive, and the second task is to explain how a thoughtful reader will see layers of meaning in his poetry. Okay, so the Frost's simple style is deceptive task will assess your knowledge of the language used by Frost in his poetry, and the explain how a thoughtful reader will see layers of meaning in his poetry task is asking you to explore some of the themes that are evident in his poetry as well. So with that in mind, a good tip when approaching the prescribed poetry question is to always remember that you're ultimately being assessed on your knowledge of your prescribed poet's language and themes, and this question is no different. So now that we've become familiar with the question, let's take a quick look at the marking scheme. The marking scheme outlines that the corrector is to reward students who engage with both the simple style is deceptive and the layers of meaning in Frost's poetry aspects of the question. To ensure that you address both aspects of the question in your essay, I would really strongly advise you to create a plan before jumping straight in and responding to the question. The corrector will award you with the code DS for any valid points that you make in relation to Frost's deceptive style, and they'll reward you with the code LM for points made in relation to layers of meaning. So your goal should really be to achieve both of these codes for each of your main body paragraphs. Remember, the more codes you are rewarded, the higher your grade will be. So now that we've looked at the question and we've gotten an insight into the marking scheme, we'll jump straight into the sample answer. First we look at this student's introduction to their Frost essay. I liked how this student alludes to a Frost quote that reads, "Poetry begins in delight and ends in wisdom," to introduce their essay. This reads quite nicely and also shows me, the corrector, that the student has possibly carried out some of their own research in relation to their prescribed poet. Including a quote like this one in your intro can not only set the tone of your essay, but can actually also help you to get off to a good start with the corrector. I also liked how this student gives a general insight into Frost's poetry by mentioning that although it was written many years ago, the topics discussed in Frost's poetry continue to be as relevant today as they were when the poems were written. I just think that this insight into Frost's poetry helps the corrector to appreciate the fact that the student has indeed considered some of Frost's poetry in the context of today's world, and then goes and shows an awareness when it comes to Frost's topical and relevant themes. I also really liked how this student reinforced the question's key words throughout their intro. So words such as simple and meaning and the phrase deceptive style helps this student's intro stay on task. Having said that though, I do think that this intro to a prescribed poetry essay is just too long and too long-winded. The student tries to squeeze too much information into the intro, and the effect of this is that it appears quite crammed at times. A tip to avoid writing a crammed and long-winded intro just like this one is to trust that your main body paragraphs will do the talking for you. So keep some of your points for the main body paragraphs. There's no need to give all of the information that you're going to be discussing in your essay away in the intro itself. So now that we've looked at the intro, let's take a look at the student's first main body paragraph, and that paragraph covers the poem "The Tuft of Flowers." I was particularly impressed with the opening few sentences of this paragraph, where the student wastes no time in outlining how they found Frost's poem "The Tuft of Flowers" to be deceptive, and how upon further analysis they discovered a layered meaning in relation to the themes of isolation and friendship. So by getting straight to the point of your paragraph, you not only ensure that your paragraph is on its way to being concise, but you also allow the corrector to quickly and easily identify the angle the paragraph will take. So the more straightforward and accessible your paragraph is for the corrector, the more likely you are to receive the marking scheme codes, granted that the points you're making within the paragraph are actually on task as well. I absolutely loved the presence of personal response throughout this essay. Phrases such as "I feel," "I believe," and "I found" all allowed this student to personally respond to Frost's poetry in light of the question, which in turn actually affords them with the opportunity to present unique and considered insights into their poet's poems. Personal response is such an important element of any good poetry essay, and I'm always so surprised at how few students actually include it in their essays in an exam situation. This student effectively and comprehensively addresses the question's 2 tasks within this main body paragraph. The student comments on Frost's deceptive language by referring to how the pessimistic tone evident in the poem The Tuft of Flowers becomes more inquisitive and later even uplifting and positive. Here the student uses an example of Frost's style to convey to the corrector that they agree that his style is deceptive on first reading, and then in the next sentence begin to explain how this deceptive style provided them with a layered meaning. The connection the student makes between deceptive style and layered meaning is very impressive, and in an exam situation would have really impressed any corrector. Again, the student revisits the notion that Frost's poetry has layered meanings for the thoughtful reader. The student delivers an incredibly profound insight, I think, into how they believe that Frost, in the poem The Tuft of Flowers, is superficially discussing the relationship between two farmers, while also metaphorically exploring the idea of humanity's relationship with God. This student's ability to address the question throughout this paragraph in such an insightful and knowledgeable manner is very impressive. Having said all of that, I do think that this paragraph is too long and is crammed with too much information. Remember, these are only 3 extracts from the original paragraph found on the sample answer itself. Even though the content of the paragraph is perfect and spot on, it's pretty unrealistic to think that a student would be able to provide this level of analysis in an exam situation. You can still score a very high grade by including 1 point in each of your main body paragraphs. There's absolutely no need to include all of this info in one main body paragraph covering one poem. It's simply unrealistic at Leaving Cert level. So the last aspect of the sample answer we're going to have a look at today is the student's 3rd main body paragraph, which covers the poem The Road Not Taken. Again, I really liked how this student consistently provided personal response to Frost's poetry in light of the question throughout their essay. The sentence, "To me, the journey Frost embarks on along one road in the wood symbolises the path he chose to take in life," confirms that this student possesses a deep understanding of Frost's language and themes. It's clear from snippets of personal response just like this one that the student has not only studied Frost in class but has contemplated the various aspects of his poetry in their own time, going above and beyond really what was expected of them in the context of the Leaving Cert poetry course. Again, I can't stress enough how impressive and grade enhancing including personal response can be in this section of paper 2. I also found the fact that the student displays an incredible knowledge of Frost's poetic techniques throughout their essay to be quite impressive. Remember, poetic techniques are ultimately the nuts and bolts of poetry, so use your prescribed poetry essay as a platform to show off that you know all about the techniques and that you also know the function and effect of these techniques as well. I was also very impressed with this student's ability to deliver profound insights in relation to the layered meanings found in Frost's poetry. The sentence, "I find it inspiring that he was brave enough to take the road less travelled by, as this portrays an important lesson of not to be afraid to make the choice that no one else is making, because that may be the choice that is right for you," confirmed to me that this student is fully aware of the themes and meanings evident within the poem The Road Not Taken. I also really liked how this student leads into their next main body paragraph with the sentence, "However, Frost took a more universal and blunt approach in his poem Out Out." I think these kind of lead-in sentences are rarely used by students, and I think they read very nicely and can often help your essay become more fluid and even more organised. A piece of advice I would give to this student in the context of their paragraph would be to, again, just shorten their paragraphs. This student's paragraphs, while very insightful and on task, obviously, are too unrealistic given the time constraints of the exam. A tip for keeping your main body paragraphs more concise would be to just think singularly, so refer to one main point per main body paragraph. So now that we've looked at a few different sections of the sample answer, I just want to quickly reinforce some of this video's take-home points. Overall, I was pretty impressed with this Robert Frost essay. What worked well was the fact that the student convincingly and comprehensively addressed the question's 2 tasks in their essay. The student showcased as well an incredible knowledge of Frost's language and also a very comprehensive knowledge of Frost's themes. I also loved how this student provided rich insights into Frost's poetry through personal response throughout the essay. Some advice I would give to the student would be to just try and keep their essay more concise and to try and include one main point per main body paragraph. Hopefully some of the content of this video has helped you in some way. Make sure to check out the annotated PDF version of the sample answer for even more info that wasn't covered in this video. Thanks for watching and chat again soon.